This is part 2. If you listen real close, when they mention about the heart of God, how many books was written? It was written in so many languages, and it was a study edition book. So they went through this book, Harp of God, like a fine tooth and nail. So what was so special in this book that they had it into a study edition? And also listen about the 1925 convention, because this book has something to do about 1925, and the other book that was written the year after this book is called Millions Now Living Will Never Die. That book was written in 1921. Harp of God was written in 1920. And we go from there.
In exposing false worship and comforting readers with the hope in God's kingdom as the solution for their multitudinous problems. It was to become better known in later years, first as Consolation and now Awake. This journal, together with the Watchtower and many booklets, began to roll off the Society's own press at their first printery on Myrtle Avenue in Brooklyn, New York. In 1919, all congregations were invited to register as and become service organizations for the purpose of furthering the preaching of the kingdom. As each congregation registered, it received the appointment of one of its members as a service director. Through him, the society would thereafter channel its directions and suggestions to the congregation for continual improvement in the efforts to bring many more to righteousness. In the 1920s, there was a ready response to the Society's request that each one sharing in the witness work should turn in a weekly report to the congregation. Until that time, only coal porters or pioneers had been reporting their activity in the field. So it is with special interest that we learn what was reported that first year in the United States alone. 980 congregations were organized for field service, and a total of 8,052 participated in the witness work, as well as 350 pioneers. Meantime, in many other lands, our brothers were busying themselves in the Lord's work for their own blessing and the enlightenment of thousands of searchers after truth. In the years that followed, a constant flow of beautiful cloth-bound books was published and distributed by God's people, including the Harp of God, which eventually attained a circulation of nearly 6 million copies in 22 languages. The Harp of God was used extensively in Bible study classes.
Okay, you just heard this book had many copies, and it was a study edition. So that means this book was studied by all Bible students at that time. And the information in this book that Judge Rockford predicted in 1925 that Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, King David, all these men was going to come back to life. And you just heard they roll out this new book called Harp of God. So this book was written by the Watchtower. It was not written by ex-Jehovah's Witnesses. It was written by the governing body.
Other books, such as Deliverance, Creation, Reconciliation, and Government, followed. They were placed with the public for a small contribution. They were also used as the basis for midweek Bible study meetings in the congregations. By this time, the society was renting a 6-story factory building at 18 Concord Street, Brooklyn, and our own brothers volunteered to do all the necessary work of typesetting, composing, and printing. The brothers who cared for this work were willing workers, Bethelites who were part of the headquarters staff of the society. Outgrowing the Concord Street factory within 5 years, the society built a new steel-reinforced concrete structure at 117 Adams Street. Here, full facilities were set up for printing.
By the printing presses, they was putting out books, false prophecies. They was selling books to the public, false prophecies about the world was going to end in 1925.
Another outstanding feature of the 1920s was the series of international conventions organized by the Watchtower Society. At each one, J.F. Rutherford delivered a thought-provoking Bible lecture to those present and then offered a resolution or declaration which the audience approved with a resounding aye. In 1925, a message of hope was approved by thousands at the Indianapolis Convention.
Okay, you just heard, in 1925, a message of hope. What was this hope that was given by Judge Rutherford? Millions now living would never die. So everybody believed his talk that everybody in that stadium would never die. They would never grow old. They would never see death. Where he got this information? From Harp of God and books, Millions Now Living Will Never Die.
1926 witnessed an international convention of the Bible students at London, England. A testimony to the rulers of the world was presented by J.F. Rutherford. Before long, 50 million copies of this testimony were in the hands of the people. Toronto, Canada.
Okay. I don't believe this. You look at this here, it's showing Harp of God. And if you look at the bottom, Millions Now Living Will Never Die. That was the second book they wrote, but the title underneath the main title, they're showing that everybody who was alive that got this book would never see death. Inside cover. And of course, Jehovah's Witnesses try to change the title of the Millions Now Living Will Never Die to Millions Now Living May Never Die. So they want everybody in the future that this book was talking about everybody was living that may never die. No, there's the word will. The book was by J.F. Rutherford. Watchtower Bible Tract Society, International Bible Students. Where? Brooklyn, New York, USA. So Judge Rutherford was a false prophet. the Watchtower printed books from Judge Rutherford, so that would make them a false prophet. You go to the Harp of God on page 339 and 340. Remember, this book was written in 1921. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and the other faithful prophets described by Apostle Paul in Hebrews are promised a better resurrection, a better statement of the prophet that they shall be princes on earth, or rulers in all the earth. And it is to be respected that they will be the first ones to rise under the terms of the new covenant. So that means they're going to be resurrected. Therefore, it's reasonable to expect them to be back at the beginning of the resurrection blessing. Hence, these faithful men may be expected on earth when? Within the next few years. Next few years. They were supposed to be resurrected the next few years. And if we go to the book of Millions Now Living Will Never Die, we'll find out when these men were supposed to be brought back to life. And you see the title of the book and page number 8990. Confidently expect that what year? 1925 will mark the return of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and the faithful prophets of old. So, with those two books, prove that in 1925, Judge Rutherford predicted the world was going to end, and these faithful men of old was going to be back alive in 1925. People, if you're Jehovah's Witness, your name, Jehovah's Witness, was made from this man, Judge Rutherford, and he was a false prophet. So that means you was named after a false prophet. That also makes the Watchtower a false prophet. And in 1975, they predicted the world was going to end. In 1975, they had a couple of books in Wake magazines to show that 1975 the world was going to end. So, what does this show? That the Watchtower has lied to us so many years, making us believe that we was in the truth, the real truth. And all they are, no better than any other religion, trying to get members to come in so they can steal their money, give them false hope, false promises, and they are a cult, and they are and never was a religion. Thank you, and have a nice day.